Alrighty, howdy neighbors and welcome back to our life. Last time we met Cove's mother, among other things. And I think I'm going to start with growing. Early one morning you found yourself in the living room with your family. It was another one of those summer days where it felt too hot to go outside, but it was too uncomfortable to do anything inside either. The air conditioner was cranked up as far as you could negotiate it, but everyone was still being pretty lazy. You, your moms, and sister were lounging around while the TV bled on in the background, ignored by all of you. You specifically were. He's pretty cool on the carpet. Chris was on the floor, the arm with the chair, draped over the coffee table. Who the frick does this? She prefers the floor in case she falls asleep. He looked out the window at the backyard. Not that there was anything of particular interest to watch. Elizabeth broke the silence with a loud groan. He glanced over. She was laying on her back over the couch, massaging her calf with one hand. I can't read, okay? I want everyone to know that reading is just so hard. Massaging her calf with one hand. Ugh, I feel terrible. I'm dying in this house and my legs hurt. Mom looked up from the magazine she'd barely flipped through and frowned, concerned. Could you have strained them somehow? Elizabeth flailed briefly and flopped on her side with a heavy sigh. Oh no, it just hurts.
Sweetie.
Oh, sweetheart. Ma got up from her seat at the kitchen table and walked over to her sister. She had a light pat on Elizabeth's shoulder sympathetically. I'm sorry you have to deal with that. Maybe it's growing pains. You could be taller by next fall. Elizabeth scoffed. She didn't look impressed by Ma's assessment. I'd rather be my height forever than deal with this. Mom walked over to you, leaning against the back of the couch. Kids, they grow up so fast. Soon Elizabeth will have a home of her own. Maybe even with a nice husband and some kids if she feels like it. She sniffed loudly and wiped her eye, but you could tell that it was just a bit. You tilted your head. Even though you knew Elizabeth liked guys, it was hard to imagine her with a boyfriend or husband. She only seemed invested in hanging out with her group of friends, not chasing after boys. Also, I wanted to mention that I have my window open now, so you're probably going to hear the sounds of outside as I'm playing inside. If you do, sorry about that, but it's hot. I almost agree with you. She shook her head.
No.
Let's not exaggerate. She's still practically a child. But if ever do pursue romance, Elizabeth, you could come talk to me about it. Definitely. We're always willing to lend an ear. Elizabeth's features contorted in disgust. No way. I'm not talking to my moms about that. Mom's jaw dropped and she gasped in an exaggerated display of shock. Her hand came out to rest against her chest. Ma only grinned. She didn't get offended by Elizabeth's quick response at all. It really wouldn't be so bad to come to us. I know what it's like to have a crush on a pretty boy or two. I don't, but I can listen anyway. Mom snorted at her own joke, while Ma burst into giggles. They were having too much fun at Elizabeth's expense. Elizabeth certainly wasn't feeling the amusement, because she rolled her eyes and sat up.
Thanks.
I went back to my room. I'd rather melt alone, thanks. She strode off toward the staircase, taking steps 2 at a time. Your mom stared at her, then turned to each other with raised eyebrows. Whoops, looks like we scared her off with all that romance talk.
Well?
Oh well, we'll get her next time. You watched them teeter with some surprise. Obviously, your moms liked women. But you had no idea that Ma liked guys, too. Today was the first time you heard her say something like that. Ma, you like girls? Guys? Oh, you like guys and girls? Ma turned to you. Happy to bring you into things now that you've spoken up. She smiled and nodded. That's right, I like both. But I like your mom most out of anyone. She's special. Ma's smile turned all soft in the corners. They usually did when she looked at her. She pinched Mom's cheek slightly. Mom reached up to cup a hand over Ma's. Even when Ma stopped pulling on his cheek, their hands remained clasped together.
You're fantastic.
Thanks, Lonnie. I think most women have charm, but no one can hold a candle to you.
Aww.
Aw, Pamela. Ma beamed, then kissed Mom on the cheek she'd been pinching before. You thought the moment was very sweet, you laughed at their antics, you cringed. Parents are embarrassing. You chuckled quietly at their back and forth. They were always saying cutesy stuff like that to each other. Ma looked back at you, letting Mom's hand go with a brief squeeze. She settled down next to you and Mom followed soon after. You know, I'm here to listen to you whenever you're ready. That offer isn't just for Elizabeth. She bumped her shoulder with yours, a reassuring smile in place. There's no rush, of course. You can take all the time you need to figure out what or who you want.
It's okay.
Don't think you have to stick with whatever you come up with right now either. Life's nice like that. You can change and you can learn. Mom nodded her agreement. The two of us are happy to hear you out, and you may be able to relate better than you think. Still, we won't push the topic. At least, most of the time. She gave Ma the weakest, scathing look possible, while being unable to stop grinning. Not silently. You weren't sure what to say about that. One let out another exaggerated sniffle. It didn't take a genius to realize it was fake. First Elizabeth and now you, Viola. Do you have to grow up? Yes, children tend to do that from time to time. Your parents quickly grew absorbed in their conversation about rearing kids. You took that as your cue to leave, getting up so you could spend some time alone in your room too. They let you go without a problem. You made your way up the stairs. Let a sigh once you stepped into your room. It was just as sweltering in there as it was in the living room, possibly even a little warmer. You couldn't even open your windows since it was hotter outside, and you just let the AC out. You dragged your feet as you crossed your room. You checked your current sweltering condition in the mirror as you passed it by. Thought back to the conversation you had downstairs about growing up and all that. After a moment, you stepped a bit closer to the mirror. You stared into it, then turned away from the surface to look down at yourself. You were definitely growing alright. It was weird thinking about how you were now in comparison to what you'd been like when you were younger. When it came to your body, it was slender. You shifted to the side, your head still facing forward and continuing to self-evaluate from this viewpoint. Just as flat now, but will likely change when you get older, start to develop. Noticeable. Try to imagine your adult self might look like. You reached out and massaged your scar with one hand, staring intently at it in the mirror. By now, you knew that it was there to stay. You took a step backward, finished your impromptu inspection. Your eyes locked in your reflection, and your head to one side, all things considered. Look too bad. You're self-conscious. It took you a moment to realize that you were frowning at yourself. Glanced away from the mirror. Shook your head roughly, putting thoughts of what you were turning into out of your mind. It wasn't time to focus on such things. You had to find something to do in this heat. You shuffled over to your bed, collapsing onto the mattress. Your breast scrunched up at the thought. Time passed slowly. And to your annoyance, possible ideas of what to do were few and far between. You weren't sure how long it had been, but eventually you heard your mom call you from downstairs. Viola! It's a call for you. Who wants to come over, is that alright? You picked up the words, sitting up in bed. You yelled back to her immediately. Yes! You got your feet and headed downstairs, eager to see your friend. You need to go downstairs soon anyway, because your empty stomach told you that it was almost time for lunch. As you reached the bottom of the stairs, you saw Mom put the phone back in the receiver. She glanced at Ma, leaning her hip against the kitchen counter.
What a pickle.
Well, here comes trouble. Better prepare ourselves. Ma clicked her tongue in clear disapproval of Mom's words. He's such a good boy. Cove never wants to cause trouble. He can just be a bit thoughtless and impulsive. Oh, I know, he's very sweet. But that's what makes it more of a problem. If If a stranger or some kid from school is egging Viola on to behave badly, I think we could both agree that she'd do the right thing in the end. But if Cove Holden got into a reckless move and wanted Viola to be part of that ride, you may be certain of what calls she'd make then?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Viola wants Cove to settle down. He would have gotten himself into more trouble without her.
Thanks.
You do have a point. Ma just laughed. She turned away, still snorting. Her eyes met yours. She blinked in surprise, then waved at you with an easy grin. Mom looked over, noticed that you're at the foot of the stairs as well. I would expect you to come down already, Viola. I just wanted to let you know what was happening. Well, if I hadn't come now, I wouldn't have heard everything you said. Ooh, you got caught, Pam. What? You were saying things too. I didn't say anything. I wouldn't have told Viola directly. Oh, you're unbelievable. Shook your head to your parents, even as you fought a blush when you remembered that just what they've been discussing. Alright, you got me. Sorry for being gossipy and saying that about your friend. That could be bad too.
Let's go.
We'll get out of your way now. Mom sighed in mock defeat and made her way down the hall. Ma followed after her with a hushed giggle. My own lone living room, tasked with waiting for Cove. Now it's just fine by you. If it hadn't been so hot outside, I would have visited him at his house a long time ago. Took a seat at the kitchen counter and settled in for the wait. As expected, there was a knock on the door a few minutes later. When you got up and answered it, your neighbor was standing on the other side. He came in once you stepped aside and let him in, giving a little wave. You greeted him as you typically did. With a hug. The grown wiggled in your arms like a fish out of water. Stop, it's too hot for this. You didn't take pity on him. You knew he was kidding. If you really wanted to get out of the hug, he would have done it already. Rachel let him go, smirking to yourself. Alright, I'm done. Cove sighed and wiped his face a bit. You noticed a sheen of sweat across his brow. He must be glad to be in an air-conditioned place, even if he only had to walk across the street to get there. It must be obvious that you were confused by his visit, because he answered your unspoken question. I don't want to do anything, not when it's like this. You just said vaguely to the humid air hanging around. I thought I could at least do nothing with you. I was thinking the exact same thing. He grinned and he smiled back. And that was all there was to it. Both of you were on the same page. Have you had lunch yet? I was gonna do it soon. He shook his head.
Not really.
I haven't really felt like eating because of the heat. I probably should have lunch. I didn't have breakfast this morning. You like that too sometimes? Do properly. You gotta have something now. Or we can eat lunch together. She doesn't really care about this because Iris doesn't eat really at all. Much like a bird. She really doesn't eat too much. I like that too sometimes. Parents don't like it when I do that though. Mine doesn't either. They'll ask if I ate here when I go back home. As one, you headed to the kitchen. Crossed your arms as you glanced around, wondering where you should concept for a meal. You don't want to eat anything that's warmed up. Is there something cold or not cooked? Yeah. If you put it back and forth, the two of you concluded that you should raid the fridge and cabinet in order to make sandwiches. With that settled, you would plan to decide on the outside layers first. So what variety to choose from, since everyone in the house had their favorites. There was white bread, wheat bread, sourdough, mixed grain, gluten-free bread, and pita pockets. Hey. Could you take the grain one for me? Sure. You reached for mixed grain and then made your decision. Oh, I don't like bread. Wrap. Go to the fridge to get a lettuce cup too, setting both items onto the counter. Then you had to decide the main direction the sandwich would go in. You wanted to make a truly savory style sandwich. Something savory would make it feel like a real meal. As for specific ingredients... Oh fuck, there's too many things. There's too many choices. I put more lettuce. There's so much fucking lettuce. There are too many choices. I'm not the big fan of ham, so let's do turkey. Oh, okay. And then do a cheese. Tomato. Return to condiments. Finishing touch you intended to top your sandwich with. Oh, I have to choose? Ew. I like it dry. I'm very weird. If anything has the slightest amount of, like, sog to it at all, I cannot eat it. And I'm very picky when it comes to textures. So I think I'm just gonna do this. That was everything. Now unto yourself with a quiet hum satisfied. The two of you bustled around the kitchen, opening and closing things in order to collect everything you needed for your individual sandwiches. Focused intensely on assembling your own for the most part. When you were close to being done, though, you glanced over at your neighbor. He was putting his sandwich together delicately, his brow furrowed and tongue sticking out, just barely. There were open jars of peanut butter and honey near his plate, as well as a banana peel. So he was making a peanut butter, banana, and honey sandwich with mixed grain bread. I didn't think much of that. It wasn't that surprising or interesting. Curiosity satiated. Return back to your plate and finish your own creation. By the time you're done, Cove had already cleaned up his workstation. Turned to face you, studying your sandwich briefly. A small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. You guessed it didn't look inedible to him, at least. Done? Yeah. Cool. He waited for you to quickly return the ingredients and cleaned a few utensils, and the two of you collected your respective plates. Both agreed that heading upstairs to hang out in your room. When Cove entered your bedroom, while balancing the food on your plates. Nothing fell, so it's a successful trip. Or I guess for a trip it's unsuccessful. Because he ain't dropping anything. Okay, I'll stop. Cove took a seat on the ground, stretching out on the hardwood floor in an attempt to keep it a bit cooler. He immediately took a big bite of the sandwich, chewed, then hummed happily. The sandwich is really good. At least that's something. At this point, you sat down and started your own sandwich. Shrugged, it was okay. You had better sandwiches, but you had a lot worse too. This would do. He leaned back with his hands while chewing and glanced around. His every movement was sluggish. Want to do something? It seemed the plan of not doing anything at all had already worn thin, despite his lack of enthusiasm. Like what? He rolled his head back, looking up at the ceiling. What about tic-tac-toe? Yeah. Neither of you had the energy to do something more taxing. You put your plate to the side and pulled out some markers and scrap paper. As you laid everything on the floor, he scooted back to make more room in front of you. Cove picked up one of the markers in his right hand while keeping a half slice of sandwich in his left. I want to be X's, so you can go first. I think that's fair. Okay. Prepared to note down your first move, your marker hovering over the paper. Bam. For the first round, you were about to take another bite of your sandwich when the thought occurred to you. What if anyone turned off the TV downstairs? The TV that was on earlier, but no one's really watching. Everyone started leaving the living room. I think... Oh, I know I didn't turn it off. It might still be on downstairs and no one's there. Cove smiled quickly at that. Poor show. Playing with no one around to enjoy it. What was it? Squinted and off into the middle distance, trying to recall the show's name. I feel like it was some kind of crime-solving drama. Cove nodded sleepily. His eyes closed and opened again with some effort. Can you give any specifics? Maybe I can guess it. Well, I see your chin on your open palm, groggily thinking as hard as you could. I remember that there was a woman with long blonde hair, I think? She was the one solving the crimes, like as a detective or something. And they were seen at the police station. Because someone got arrested? You lapsed into silence, both of you thoughtful. Then Cove chuckled. Well, wasn't that funny, but you joined in the laughter anyway. I don't know what that is. Me neither, I just saw it. Another round came and went. Cove grumbled as he readjusted himself. His features were twisted and grimace. It feels so sticky. Ugh. I'm gonna be stuck on this floor forever now. I have to charge your rent then. Yeah, how much? $50. What? I can't afford that! Well, you gotta pay if you gotta stick around. Cove shook his head at your terrible pun and went back to the game instead of answering further. Then you returned to the game. It's gonna be a stalemate. Cove spoke up once more, catching your attention. He was peering down at the piece of paper between you, his expression thoughtful. You know, tic-tac-toe is a weird name for a game. What does it even mean? Maybe they named it because people played it with ticks and tacks. I wonder that. I'll have to look it up later. Cool game. No one's sure where the name came from. Cove raised a skeptical brow. You bit back a laugh of feigned seriousness. It makes sense, because they probably didn't have paper and markers back then. What about toes? You didn't say anything about that. He had you there. No answer found, you returned to the game. This is gonna end in a stalemate. Damn it. Fine, whatever, meh. At this point, Cove had finished the sandwich. This is almost gone too. But now you were thirsty. You went up to your neighbor. Should we go downstairs and get some drinks? I think that too. But I really don't want to get up. Me neither. Can you not drive right now? Thank you. Appreciate that. Looking over at him, narrowing your eyes in false suspicion. But hey, what happened to you not being able to get up again because you would be stuck to the floor? That's still true. I mean, we're not actually going, are we? I only thought about it. You rolled your eyes and dropped the issue, defeated. Cove grinned a little at your disappointment over his victory. Girl, there's no victor. Oops, it's a tie. Are you out of it? I know I didn't try that hard. He smiled at you in an amused way. You somehow weren't surprised by that. Despite Cove being the one who suggested the game in the first place. He started to yawn, his hand coming up over his mouth. Quickly transitioned into a small laugh. He understood why. Yawning just as he said he was feeling disinterested was a kind of funny coincidence. He laughed along with Cove. He just grinned and flopped onto his back, leaving his marker on the floor beside him. He stayed seated, looking over your friend as he stretched himself out. You really are so tall now. Cove snickered a bit at the random topic, held his sofa up onto his elbows to meet your gaze. Why do you bring that up now? You shrugged. It made perfect sense to you to bring it up. My once were talking about me and Elizabeth growing up, getting bigger and stuff. The kind of stuff. Well, Mom only likes women, but Mom likes women too, but not just women. Yeah? As the two of you were engaged in conversation, Cove got back into his sitting position, brought his knee up and rested his arm atop it. A wistful expression overtook his face. I wonder when I'll know how I feel about that kind of thing. You don't know? Cove shook his head. I heard at some point you're supposed to start liking types of people, guys or girls or whatever.
I don't know.
But I haven't. Nothing's changed. Maybe I have to grow up more. Maybe you just don't like anybody. Or maybe you like all types of people. Still do. Cove seemed to appreciate that thought, if the smile that appeared on his lips were any indication. Okay, what about you? Who do you like? He turned his attention to you, looking encouraging. You're starting to have physical attraction in a general way. You only seem to feel physical attraction in specific cases and circumstances. You don't really have physical interest in other people. Don't think you could tell if you had an interest in people physically. try to feel romantic attraction in a general way. Specifically, when he given how you felt toward boys. I'm not attractive. You thought you'd be happy with a guy someday. You found them attractive, but you hadn't thought about being with a guy. You aren't physically attracted, but you'd be happy to have a romantic relationship with a guy. You weren't interested in guys. You generally weren't interested in guys, but there are special exceptions. Here we go. How I felt toward girls. You aren't interested in girls. People who aren't exclusively male or female. It's cool. Return your attention to Cove, who is waiting patiently for your response. He nodded understandingly at your attempt to describe how you felt, and he scratched the back of his head sheepish. I'm not really sure how we ended up talking all about that when we started off just playing tic-tac-toe. But it was good, I think. I think so too. Cove chuckled a little bashfully. He glanced around, clearly scrambling for something else to say. So have you written anything new recently? I have. Conversation took a lighter turn after that, and it felt like you got closer that afternoon. Finally the blazing sun began to set. To your relief, the air cooled down a bit as a result. Pulled yourself off the floor, as did Cove, with some minor complaint. Both stretched your arms, groaning, and yawned into your hands. You glanced out the window briefly, taking in the soft reds, pinks, and purples of the late afternoon sun. Somehow, you had made it through a scorching hot day in one piece. Cove turned toward you, motioning toward your window with his chin. Want to go outside? It might be better out there than it is in here. Sure. Two of you took your time wandering downstairs. Stopped briefly to grab a drink of water, then continued on your way. You stepped outside, one after the other, your destination being the familiar hills behind your house. A summer day, it was quiet outside. The flowers blew gently in the wind, petals trembling but stubbornly holding in there. You felt the breeze cool your heated skin, and you relaxed your shoulders. Cove closed his eyes, releasing a deep breath. I really love it out here. I do too. Cove smiled, tendrils of his hair danced in the wind. The beat passed, but his gaze didn't stray from your own. His voice was impossibly soft as he spoke up again. Glad I met you, Viola. You're really important to me, you know? Special to me, Cove. Your voice came out equally delicate. From the way his features brightened, though, you knew he heard you. Then Cove rested an arm on one of your shoulders, leaning against you. Even as the sun disappeared completely and the sky darkened, you and Cove remained side by side for as long as you possibly could. I think we're starting to romance ourselves a Cove. Wave. The family shopping trip had lasted most of the morning, and you still had to unload everything from the trunk before you can go enjoy the afternoon. You cradled another bag in your arms as you headed toward your house. It was one of the heavier bags in the grocery store, loaded with fresh apples, ripe tomatoes, a bunch of carrots, and even half a watermelon. Ma came at the front door and paused just ahead of you.
No trouble.
Need help with that, Viola? I can bring it the rest of the way if you need me to. It would be helpful. It was just too heavy. You're doing fine. You could just manage to hold it. You either agreed with a nod of your head. You needed someone else to take it. You didn't say anything. You finished the job yourself, no problem. Just managed to hold it. Even if it's heavy, you wanted to bring it in yourself. Mama gave you an encouraging grin and rested her fingers through your white hair. You set the next bag on the counter. Your older sister began to root around inside the contents with a sigh. How much is left? Still a few more bags. With a huff and a puff, Elizabeth continued putting away the groceries, and you retreated out of the kitchen before you could become another target of her bad mood.
Be careful.
Careful, Viola. You hadn't been looking where you were going and bumped right into Mom, almost stepping on her toes to boot. Sorry. I can give you a pass this time, but be sure you watch where you're going. If you run into the wrong person, you might get your license revoked. She grinned at the bad joke as you continued through the door. Outside, Mom was still organizing what remained and putting back any loose objects that had fallen out during the trip. As you stepped up to the trunk beside her, she took a big breath of air, her dress gently swaying around in the breeze.
It's a shame.
It's a shame we had to spend the morning cooped up in the shopping center. It's a beautiful day, don't you think? You tilted your gaze at the sky, gazing at the clear blue expanse. I wish it was raining. You let out a sigh, seeing the skies for any sign of a fluffy gray rain cloud. Maybe we'll get a sun shower one of these days. You perked up at that, hoping it was true. It'd be a refreshing change right about now. With renewed enthusiasm, you turned back to the trunk and helped Ma with the last of the bags. Oh my goodness, Pepper Ann! Would you like to meet Cove? I don't have any pets, so I don't think you'll find it very interesting. My cat entered the room, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, hi, Cove. You notice Mom wave over at Cove, who had just exited his front door, his surfboard propped up under one arm. See, a surfboard and a wetsuit. Where might you be off to this beautiful day? Cove flinched about being called to so suddenly. He hadn't realized that there were people out here already. He quickly recovered. Good one, Mrs. Bell. He crossed the pavement and properly said hello to you and your moms. Hello, honey. It's a beautiful day for surfing. I haven't been out in the waves for a long time. I'm jealous. Be jealous longer. Cove smiled, pleased to see people around who shared his hobby. Yeah, I'm hoping to get a few good waves before it gets dark. You want to come and hang out later, Viola? Sure. I'll meet you there when we're done. Cool. Can I help out with anything? No, this is our job. You enjoy the beach. Well, we'll catch up as soon as she is finished here. Alright, I'll see you. Yeah. You watched as Cove headed off toward the beach, unable to hide your grin, knowing that you'd be joining him soon. Once everything had finally been taken in and put away, you got yourself ready to meet Cove at the beach. You had a surfboard in your room and you want to take it with you. Your family had a surfboard around here somewhere. You weren't sure what you were going to do. He's surfing and you don't know how. You said the same thing to your parents, and while Ma laughed a little, Mom gave you a smile. You just have to be there and see what happens. Cove must have been so excited to invite you that he forgot you don't surf. Or he's hoping you'll go watch him so he can show off. Oh yeah, I used to do that. I know, hun. I experienced Viola's situation firsthand. I was stuck on the shore too. You noticed what I was doing? Yes. After the very first time is not a subtle move. How embarrassing. I was still impressed. Aw, thank you. That's sweet. Hey, what are you still doing here? Go on, have your fun. You're only young once, but don't do anything I wouldn't have. Okay. At your parents' prodding, you hurried to leave the house and head down to the beach. When you arrived at the shore, you were greeted with the crush of waves and the soft calls of seagulls. You took a lungful of the ocean air and felt your pale skin warm in the sun. You noticed a small setup nearby with a towel, some sunscreen, and a bottle of water. Must be Cove's. You spotted Cove himself nearby. He hadn't gone out to sea yet. He was just sitting in the sand at the water's edge, his board propped up beside him. You walked up beside him. Hi, I made it. Viola. He looked up at you and smiled and quickly hopped to his feet. I was wondering if you were still coming. I wouldn't have missed it. He chuckled shyly at your insistence. Okay. And he cast his eyes toward the waves. I'll stay here and watch you surf. Oh. We're prepared to spread out your towel and take it easy. I don't have to go out. I'll stay with you on shore. If you want, you can use one of my other boards. I can teach you. I'll just watch Cove. It's alright. You go out on your own. It'll be fun to see what you can do. Cove gave you a smile, but you could tell the pressure was on. He stood up straighter with the new expectations of his performance. I could do that, if you're sure. Yep. Then okay. Wave at me if you get bored or something. You set up your towel at the beach, making yourself a comfortable viewing setup. If only you had brought popcorn. Cove looked strangely stiff in the water as he was glancing back at you. He didn't know what to do. But with every wave, he seemed to relax more and more. Either he was growing less self-conscious or more used to your eyes. After you wait patiently, you started cheering him on. After a really cool wave, you shouted at him to remember to pace himself. You did an impression of a sports announcer. You narrated every single move he made in the cheesiest announcer voice you can manage. Cove checked in with you after more time had passed. Bored yet? Always entertain myself, it's been fun. It's totally radical, dude. Uh-huh. You didn't look entirely convinced just watching him would be worthwhile, but you meant it. What about you? Are you having fun? Yeah, I always do. I like that you're here, though. Smile. Felt nice to hear that. We were glad he appreciated your presence, even if you weren't surfing like he was. He planted a surfboard in the sand and sat beside you. He looked toward the ocean and squinted at it in thought. You watched him, somewhat confused. He was thinking something, but you didn't know what, which was unusual when it came to Cove. He muttered something to himself. Cove?
It's nice.
Oh, I was just checking out the view. You have a nice spot. Thanks. With that, Cove went back to surfing and you continued to watch him. He tended to stay in your direct field of vision from that point on. Now you got it. You really look like a pro out there. All in all, the Cove surfing channel was better than cable. The setting sun was visible on the horizon. Every time you would look away, it would sink a little lower. The beach was darkening, but still pleasantly warm. Cove pointed out the sunset. There was something particularly striking about it that day. You glanced over at Cove. You saw a lazy smile on his face. Hey, what are you thinking about? Nothing exactly. It's just been nice. He picked up a shell and fidgeted with it. The inner part was smooth to the touch. I get that. We chatted a little more until the conversation truly died out, and all you heard was the romantic sound of the waves. Cove sighed. The day can't be over, not yet. He scowled in the distance as the sun exiting the sky was a personal offense. Don't you think it should be longer? Yeah. Cove stood up, straight in defiance of the approaching darkness. I'm not gonna go home yet. I wanna go somewhere, I don't know. Cove was still dripping with salt water, and you weren't sure what the alternative was. The suits were fun for the beach and not much else. It wasn't a great idea for him to lug a surfboard around town either. How do I want to play this? Iris would not be going down this route. This is now just personal me. Bap. Cove's face and ears flushed red as he looked down and inspected himself. Crossed his hands over his chest self-consciously. He had been so used to wearing it that Cove hadn't given his current choice of dress any thought. At least, that was before you pointed it out to him. Stop it. He looked down at the shore with a wide, shining eyes. There's at least one place that's always okay to hang out in, no matter what time it is, the park. You nodded. The park was virtually always empty. Even Elizabeth only went there nowadays when she was looking for you. How times have changed. She used to be so protective of that place. In fact, the only kid there was a chance of running into was that Jeremy kid again. I brought up the idea to go and he cringed, but I'm still going. The sun's still there a little. I'm staying out as long as it is. Tag along, baby! Okay, let's go! Let's go, let's go, let's go! Cove took a minute to put his stuff in order. He made sure to get it all, though it didn't take much care to shake the sand off. You dealt with your own things. Slipped everything together quickly. Done, Cove. He rolled his eyes with a bent smile at that announcement. He led the way down the beach to the park. It wasn't far, so it didn't take you long at all. The sun is still hadn't completely disappeared yet by the time you made your arrival. Cove stuck his surfboard upright in the sand and tossed his towel on top of it. By now, Cove looked mostly dry. Summer breeze on your skin kept you pleasantly warm. Cove idly went over to the monkey bars. He grabbed them, feet flat on the ground, and pretended to go across. It definitely grown in the past few years. But I'd also outgrown the monkey bars. You're too tall to play on them properly anymore. When he got to the bar in the middle, he pulled himself up and through and sat on the top of the bars. His legs dangled at the side of the bar he had perched on. Don't swing. You sat right down on the free seat and started swinging your legs. First slowly, but then you added more power to your kicks. Air rushed past your face and ruffled your hair. Built up enough momentum to let it carry you. Slowly as the arc, not high or fast. Perfect for having conversation. Guess it? Guess what? I smiled broadly and raised an eyebrow. He's not here. Right, that was true. It was a single sign of Jeremy. It looks like it was going to be just the two of you tonight. Hehehe. Cove hung his head and groaned dramatically. Your eyes widened when he whipped his head back up.
No way.
I can't believe how dumb your parents are for forcing me to come to this stupid place. You were taken aback and blinked a second before you realized he was quoting Jeremy. Hers don't know anything. Cove chuckled back at you, amused. You looked around. The old park. The streets you knew like the back of your hand. And the beach. These were your stomping grounds. You considered how Cove actually felt. How much was a joke? How much of his joke was a joke? And how much was sincere dislike of this place? Moving had never been his choice. You don't think it's dumb. Direct to like this neighborhood. You see a silent stretch. Do you really have to ask that, Viola? Cove kicked his legs carelessly as they dangled. He smiled softly. I like it here, I really do. It's a nice place. He didn't hesitate. There was no uncertainty. That was his genuine opinion. Of course, I'm here after all. You're the best thing in the neighborhood. Cove beamed at you. It didn't take long for the day to finally draw to a close. The sun was gone and it was dark. You chatted a while longer, but it was definitely winding down. I wish the days were longer. I wish this day was longer. So he kicked out. It made him look like a pouty child. Oh well. Cove sighed. It was time to go home. He hopped down from the monkey bars with a thump when his feet hit the ground. You stopped moving your legs and stood when the swing slowed down. The chains rattled and the swing smacked into you a bit, his energy not entirely spent. Cove grabbed his surfboard and threw his towel around his neck. With his water bottle in hand, he was ready. Both began to trek up the road. It was a quiet night, but you didn't run into anyone else. In what felt like no time, you had reached your street. As you walked, Cove smiled to himself. It was a soft expression, but you couldn't help but wonder what put it there. Cove. I just remembered when we were younger. It used to be such a big deal to get home after dark. You could indeed recall. If you got sandy, your parents would have something to say. If you got wet, your parents would have more to say. And if you came home after dark, well, your moms and his dad better have said it was okay beforehand. You used to need permission for everything. That small comment he made exposed just how much freedom you really had this summer. Cove looked up into the sky, a smile still on his face, as the two of you walked side by side, reminiscing. When they came to your houses, you turned to each other. Thanks for today, Viola. Thanks for an awesome day. Cove waved, and you both turned around in your respective houses. This was a pleasant end to an outing, you thought. I mean, I feel like we're doing pretty good. Like, where you got this man in our clutches. Let's go family. The sun warmed your skin from its place in the sky, and you closed your eyes, enjoying the mix of the heat and the pleasant breeze that drifted past you. You and Lee had spread out a blanket on top of one of the hills behind your house. It had been relaxing there for a while. Lee had come over earlier in the day, and while the range of activities had been discussed, from staying home to heading down to the beach, a picnic on the hill had been the choice you both settled on. A small spread was laid out in front of you. Some bottled water, soft drinks, as well as chips and sliced fruit. You sat up and reached for a snack, listening to Lee talk away about the musical she had gotten to see a few days ago. It was unbelievable. There was singing, dancing, and crazy stuff. It's almost like singing and dancing is a part of a musical, huh? Crazy stunts. And it was all done live right in front of my face. She's just describing. She said musical, and then we know what that means. Maybe one day we could go together. I gotta see more shows like that. You smiled at Lee's enthusiasm, knowing how much she enjoyed singing and performing. And she was good at it too. You had gotten the chance to hear her sing a couple of tunes, and you knew she put a lot of effort into it. I was like, singing not very good. You also like to sing and had talent of your own, and like to sing, but you had been told you're good at it. You were good at singing, and that's what did you find? Talent. It was nice if you two could share that interest. I wonder if maybe we could put on our own show. Think of how fun it'd be. We could perform for our parents and ask our friends and some people to come and watch too. It'd totally work. I don't know about that. Wouldn't showing off to everybody be fun? Thought of an audience made you feel queasy. Not really.
You sure?
Are you really super sure? You have so many skills you could show off to the masses. Don't really want to. Sorry. Krista seemed a little disappointed, but she nodded and respected your wishes all the same. Two of you lay back on the blanket and lay in the sun, throwing ideas back and forth on what you could fill your time with. The beach was nearby, so you could go swimming and collect chills, or find something to do back at home after all. In the end, nothing was tempting enough to move from your current position, so you continued chatting with Lee and nibbling on your snacks while the sun traveled in the sky overhead. So, how are your neighbors doing? You haven't spoken about them lately. You knew Lee wasn't talking about the neighbors generally, or down the street. She wanted to hear about the Holdens across the road. There was no secret that she liked to keep up to date on what's happening with them, or more specifically, Cove. There weren't many other people our age to talk about. They're great. That's good. I hope I get to see Cove again. She was wanting something juicier, but it couldn't be helped. Leah loved to chat about others' relationships, and would always ask you for details on the people you both knew. Hey, did you want to see if Cove would join the picnic? He's busy this afternoon. Yesterday he said he and his parents were going out. They might be fishing on the docks by his dad's store. Oh, that's too bad. I bet he'll have a great time with his mom and dad, though. The sun slowly began to set, the sky turning rosy pink and then warm orange. Too bad Derek isn't in the neighborhood today. I like him. He's okay. Okay is better than nothing. But exactly how much do you like him? Or maybe there's someone else I haven't heard of. Lee wriggled her eyebrows at you suggestively, and you knew exactly what she was implying. Crush, yeah. His eyes sparkled in an instant, like she just hit the jackpot. What? Who is it?
What?
I'm not giving you a name. Tell me something else about them then. The news is just too exciting. She wasn't going to be deterred. You weren't surprised when Lee started squeezing you for more details, and you answered as much as you were comfortable with. Two of you talked about your preferences when it comes to who you liked and stuff. You found that it was nice having someone to speak with about this sort of thing. Finally, you both decided to pack everything up and head back home for the evening. Upon walking through the front door, you were met by your moms and Elizabeth, hovering around each other in the living room. Tension hung thick in the air as the three of them turned to you and Lee, frowning slightly. You had interrupted something. Exactly what, you weren't sure. Hello?
Oh.
Hi, Viola. Hello, Lee. Welcome back. The room felt quiet again. But with no one quite knowing what to say, it felt incredibly awkward, but the silence didn't last. You don't have to stop just because these two are here. There's no reason trying to keep it a secret. Elizabeth was mad, with her arms folded defensively over her chest, but your mom's not in agreement with her. Elizabeth was asking about her parents. Her biological ones. The world spun around when you heard the news. You didn't understand. Why is this happening now? Domestically, she shuffled her feet uncomfortably, as though she didn't know if she should be there or not anymore. You didn't know either. Your moms had always been open and honest about the fact that neither of them had given birth to you or your sister, but the details hadn't been fully explained before. Rachel said Elizabeth didn't know a lot about her biological parents and wanted to know more. You just had never thought you'd actually stumble into it. Elizabeth looked at your parents expectantly. She wasn't going to let the unintentional interruption derail things. We don't want to keep the information from either of you. It is your right to know your past, but we did want to wait until you asked us to hear yourselves. So it's happening now, so... Your mom shared a nervous glance, and Ma took a quick breath before speaking again. I adopted you from the Philippines when you were just a baby. Elizabeth dropped her arms, her eyebrows shooting upwards in surprise. Wait, I wasn't born here? No, you weren't. You could clearly see that your sister was appalled by this information. She struggled even more with what to do or how to react. Am I gonna have to pass a test to even be a citizen?
No.
No, you were adopted into the country. We took care of things. You're already a citizen. There's nothing to worry about. I followed all the laws when it came to bringing a child out of the U.S. Nothing can be held against you. Elizabeth sighed. What is that? Placarded? Plate? I don't know that word. With the information, but still far from happy. Who are my parents? As people. Why did they put me up for adoption in the first place? Ma softly put her hands over Elizabeth's shoulders, trying to provide some support before she gave her the answer. I'm so sorry, sweetie. Your parents were reported to have died. I didn't go into details on the specifics of how, but you were an orphan. I wish I had better news for you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth was torn between emotions, her eyes filling with tears as she threw her hands in the air, settling on enraged. Great. So I can never meet them, even if I wanted to. Not that I could have anyway, since they lived in another part of the world when they were still alive. Elizabeth turned her back to you and your moms and stormed off, sprinting up the stairs and into her room before anyone could stop her. I have to go and talk to her. Ma immediately started to follow her, but Mom gently held her by the arm and shook her head. But she gave her a little space to process it all. Ma's head hung low, but she stopped walking. With Elizabeth now gone, the two of them seemed to remember you and Lee were still standing awkwardly off to the side. So you had to see all that. It's not what I expected it would have happened when the time came. But since it's the topic of the day, Viola, is there anything you would like to ask? You deserve to know, after all. He patted you back and gave you a supportive look. I want to know. Boys both nodded in sync at your reply, ready to talk. I can leave if you want to have things private. Thanks. He smiled in understanding before heading down the hall, going to wait in another room until it was over. You turned to face your parents again, preparing yourself for what they were about to tell you. Mom was the first to speak, her voice quivering with emotion. You were adopted as a baby, but 2 years after Elizabeth. We used a different organization that time, and you were adopted within the U.S. Sorry to tell you, Viola, your parents have also passed away. No other family member took you in, if there was any. That's why we wanted to wait until you asked. We didn't want to suddenly drop that in your lap. We wanted you to be prepared. We're sorry, Viola. You said nothing. Both parents were alive anymore. It's hard to really process the thought. Thank you for listening, Viola. If there is anything you want to know, all you have to do is ask. We'll do our best to answer any questions you have.
Are you okay?
How are you feeling now? Are you gonna be okay? You're fine, but you didn't mean that. You spoke in the most convincing tone you could. Your mom gave you a sad smile. If you weren't sure, they believed you. No one seemed to have any words after that. You want to get out of the house. I'm gonna go out for a little while. I'll be back before it's really late. Your mom's nodded in understanding, trusting you'd make the best call for yourself. Can you tell Lee I'm going out on my own for a little while?
Sure thing.
Sure thing. Take all the time you need. We'll keep her company. Without knowing where you really wanted to go, you began to walk down the street quietly, dragging your feet. You turned and kept walking, unsure of what else to do. Everyone else had been so upset, and you had the first idea of how you could help. Eventually, you found yourself at the beach, your feet sinking into the soft sand as you looked over the ocean. You took off your shoes and paced in the sand over the water's edge, letting the cool ocean swirl around your bare feet. It was comforting being there. The ocean breeze rustled your white hair, and the smell of salty water filling your nostrils. Eventually, you took a seat down on the ground, watching the sun as it dipped further and further toward the horizon before it disappeared completely. The sky shifted from blue to pink to orange, then a deep blue of the night. The sun shot drew your attention away from the sea. Someone was calling your name. Your head snapped to the source of the yells. At the edge of the beach, where the grass met the sand, was silhouetted in the darkness. But the person is still unmistakable to you. It was Cove. What was he doing here? His eyes settled on you ahead. It wasn't that you were in fact there, he rushed down to the shore to where you were sat. You could tell he was out of breath as he approached you. You rose to meet him. Cove, did something happen? No, not to me anyway. I want to know what happened to you. I went over to your house to say hi, but your parents said that you were gone, that you needed to get away.
What's wrong?
I mean, I had to think something was going on after something like that, so I came to find you. Thanks for coming. I'm glad you're here. Cove's forehead furrowed in concern at your words. Mom and Dad, who gave birth to me, they're dead. Without having anything to say, Cove reached out and pulled you into a tight embrace, his familiar warmth enveloping you. I'm sorry, Viola. His words were whispered comfortingly into your shoulder. You pressed your face to the crook of his neck, unable to stop the tears. The hold he had on you tightened. Can you explain everything to me? Nodded softly before taking in heavy breaths and launching into the story. Cove sat quietly and listened attentively, nodding every now and then, or taking in a sharp inhale. It took a long time for you to relay the details. Dozens of stars were pinpointed in the sky as the night wore on. Silence settled between you as Cove sat quietly for a moment, contemplating everything you had just said. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, drifting through the night toward you. Viola,
I'm so sorry.
I'm really sorry to hear about what happened to your parents. I'm so sorry. He stopped suddenly and took a deep breath. A shaky breath. And you got the impression that he was struggling with what was right to say. I feel bad that I don't feel worse. I don't know if you know. I'm just mad. You shrugged your shoulders, not knowing how to feel. Everything was so overwhelming. It was difficult to get a good grasp. Well, you're not doing anything wrong. You know that, right? I think that you could be sad if you want, for as long as you need. You could feel okay about it, whenever you want to. He sighed and ran a hand through his hair as he looked out over the ocean.
Okay.
I guess what I'm saying is, whatever you feel about it is the way you feel about it. You don't have to force yourself to be different. Cried in relief. His words made a lot of sense. You knew that despite everything you were going through, you would be okay. His tears slowly rolled down your face. The thought comforted you. He always smiled at you a little. You could tell he was trying to be comforting. And your moms definitely don't. It doesn't matter if you're not blood related. You're definitely family. I can see that, and I hope you can too. You felt the reassurance in his eyes. Hey. The sudden voice of your sister behind you made you jump. You saw her standing a little way away. She brought closer, and you didn't quite know what to do, or what she was planning on saying.
So?
Would you mind going? I want to talk to just Viola. You can come back. It's not gonna be forever or anything. Cove seemed equal parts concerned and skeptical. Leaving now wasn't a concept that thrilled him. Can't ask that. Viola, please. It's private. Elizabeth gave you a hard stare and eventually relented. You waited until you two were alone before fixing her with a cautious stare. Elizabeth folded her arms, looking you over. Mom told you about your parents too? Elizabeth broke eye contact after that. Sorry. What did you want to talk to me about? Elizabeth raised an eyebrow at the question, so the answer should be obvious. I was worried about you. I was the one who brought it up, but I made you deal with whatever was left when I was gone. She sighed, glancing upward for a moment before settling on you once more. I wanted to ask you what happened without everyone breathing down our necks. I was surprised by her admission. She stuck up her nose a little at that, but her smile was soft. I'm okay, Elizabeth. It didn't upset me. How were you allowed to be that mature? The lightning spirits in her were quickly gone. She slipped back into a scowl. You have to be born in the U.S. to become president. What? I never heard of a dream of hers before. She noticed your bafflement and continued. I get that I was never going to be president, but it just feels weird. Having stuff taken away, not even getting a chance at it. I don't like knowing. I don't like having to know that when I was born, I was going to have a completely different life. So different that I can't think about what it'll look like in my head. I could have spoken another language, lived away from everything I've ever seen here. Had someone else as my sibling. And then my parents died and I was adopted, and the life I got became a totally new thing forever. I can't go back to what it was even if I wanted to. Happiness settled between you and the person who became your sister. You knew exactly how she felt. It was a confusing feeling to have lived one way for so long, for as long as you can remember, but not having it be how it originally was. Elizabeth watched you seriously. She's still trying to make sense of this to herself. I don't know why today was the day. Nothing came up to make me ask the question. It's just something I've had in my head for a while. When it was just me and Mom's in the living room, I just kind of said it. Finally, there you go. She shifted from one foot to another, relaxing her stance just a bit. She also spoke more gently. Something about them and what happened doesn't change how I feel about our family, Viola. She smirked, fixing you with sharp eyes. I'd already figured a long time ago that moms weren't our biological parents. That wasn't news. Kept listening. Nothing about the family I was first born in would have made me decide that this wasn't my family anymore. If you had hoped you'd be free of my big sisterly status, don't think you're so lucky. She bumped her shoulder against yours playfully. Her lips tilted at the corners.
You'll always be my little sister.
You will always be my little sister. Bumped her back. It was my family too. Chuckling, she looked pleased that the conversation had gone in the end. Ready to go back home, it's been a long day. Gave her a nod.
Come on.
Come on, you two, let's go. We walked home together in a comfortable silence. Down the well-worn street. Familiarity of it all felt nice. When you stepped through the door, you found your moms quietly sitting together at the kitchen table. Their heads snapped up, and they got to their feet to meet you. Mom gave you a careful smile. Glad to see you. Hi. Hi, sweetheart. Ma then came over and wrapped her arms around you and Elizabeth, giving you a tight hug. didn't take long for Mom to join in, putting her arms around both of you.
Love you.
We really couldn't have asked for better kids. We love you. More than we could ever say. Moms. We're so glad that your moms were alright. Love you too. Give them a hug for as long as they needed. It was a nice moment shared between you. They pulled back eventually and grinned at the two of you. And you knew that you all had each other. And you always would. Hey, I hope you're alright. They came up toward you, a soft smile plastered on her face. You okay, Elizabeth? Elizabeth rolled her eyes and huffed a breath. You knew she wasn't used to showing her vulnerable side. You're doing fine. Lee nodded. You can tell she didn't quite believe her. Well, now, since we're all here, how about we do something together as a family? This is like an excellent idea. We should have some fun before the night's over.
Totally.
I love the sound of that. Yeah, okay. It's a Cove. Why not? You had a smile that threatened to tilt your lips, and that Elizabeth must have been in a good mood if she hadn't even teased Cove for being part of it. No matter what she could have said about it, you wanted him to be here. Two of you had practically grown up together the past 5 years. Got a suggestion. We could... Oh, it should be something we could do in our house with everybody in the same room. We could just put on a movie. That would be wonderful. It's good to me.
Me too.
Me too. Yeah. You're happy with watching a movie. I'll cook some popcorn. The rest of you can pick a movie. Ron head to the kitchen, and Ma turned to face the rest of you. What do you have in mind? Everybody else can decide. Watch anything. Think about drama. You don't need any more of that today. With some chuckles at a joke, and you thought about what you would prefer to watch. Comedy. Cool. Perfect. The basics settled, Ma took to sorting through the DVD collection. You didn't notice that Elizabeth was sidling up to you until she was right next to you, arm to arm. There's only so much room on the couch. I say I should go to Viola and I. This is our day. I don't want to sit with you. I'm small. You won't even notice I'm there. Elizabeth raised a skeptical eyebrow. Not so sure about that. Ma stood back up with the DVD in her hand and smirk on her face. I want to sit with the cool kids too. Surely there's room for one more, right? It'd be a tight fit, but we can make it work. You could tell that Ma was teasing, and Elizabeth rolled her eyes at where this was going. Had expected an easy victory. But you want to sit there too, huh, Cove? Ma tapped Cove on the shoulder with the DVD case. He laughed awkwardly at her teasing. I'm Cove to sit next to me. Elizabeth snorted from beside you, but you ignored it. It gave Cove a grin, and that was enough. Mom came in with a big bowl of fresh popcorn. You inhaled the smell of the hot, salted snack. What's the skinny? What? We all want to sit with Elizabeth and Viola, but there's not enough room on the couch. Mom took the answer in stride and pursed her lips together. That's definitely a problem. I suppose there's only one solution. Viola will sit on the floor in front of the couch. That way there's spots behind them and on the floor at the sides.
Yes.
Ah, yes, that's fair.
Rude.
What? No! The whole point was us getting the couch to ourselves. Sorry, that's the cost of popularity. Elizabeth groaned and crossed her arms over her chest in annoyance. Fine. Viola, you're with me in front. That's so you can fend for yourselves. With a mad dash, his mom and Lee raced to the couch behind you and Elizabeth, and Mom put the DVD in the player before joining them. Cove took a seat at your other side on the floor, giving you a small smile. Everyone soon quieted down, and the only sounds that were heard were of hands scooping the popcorn and munching it down before the movie began. In that moment, you couldn't have been more pleased to be a part of the family you had. That was fun. Just comedy and tragedy. Alright, well, I'm gonna go ahead and end the episode there. So, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully, I will see you later.